Hi, everyone. Welcome to Children in the Fields Campaign's Live Thursday. My name is Kendra Mosley. I'm here with two special guests, Rod Ritcherson and Shirley Áviles from UMOS. We're so happy to have them. Before I introduce them more properly, though, I just want to give you all a chance to get signed in. Our protocol has been that we love to hear where you're all joining us from, your name, where you work, if that's relevant, and if you want to share. So go ahead and type that into the chat box, and we'll give you a few minutes before we get started. And while we wait, I'm just going to put this up here. Our contest is 3 weeks from the deadline, so please share. I've been mentioning it every week, so I'm sorry if you're getting tired of hearing about it. But we are really excited to see any entries that you all have to send in. They're starting to come in, and we love each one. A reminder that there's 4 categories, so you might get lucky and be entering the category that is least competitive. So you never know how easy it could be to win $100, $200, $300 scholarship or a tablet. So take advantage. Remember, it's for migrant and seasonal farm worker children ages 10 to 18 years old. Let me just check in, see if everyone is getting ready. All right, let me see here. So I will go ahead and get started. We're at 12:32. So today we're talking to UMOS, the AFOP member that is representing Missouri and Wisconsin. They also have some locations in a few other states, I think Florida, Texas, and I'm missing one.
I'll mention six.
Okay,
total.
6. UMOS has been around now for 55 years, and in that time has accomplished so much, not least of which has been to lead the farm worker civil rights movement in Wisconsin and other Midwestern states in the 60s and 70s, leading to many breakthroughs for farm workers there. So given the recent events, we want to highlight this important chapter in our history where farm workers stood up for their rights and accomplished a lot of important milestones. And I also want to check in with UMOS and see how that is affecting their status there today. So we want to take a moment also to recognize the fight by Black people in this country to achieve justice and equality. It's been such a long struggle with so many lives lost along the way. This country was founded on high-minded ideals, but we've never lived up to them. And it's taken many generations and successive movements for everyone to start recognizing that the American dream is not accessible to everyone. And this history of injustice is one that's shared by farm workers and everyone in the farm worker community. So we stand with you. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said to Cesar Chavez, our separate struggles are really one, a struggle for freedom, for dignity, and for humanity. So welcome to Rod and Shirley.
Thank you.
Hi.
With that introduction, with that lead up, I want to mention Rod Ritcherson is the corporate spokesperson for UMOS. He has over 40 years of experience in marketing, advertising, and corporate communications in both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. He's been associated with UMOS for 26 years. And Shirley Áviles is the Director of Farmworker Services for UMOS. Shirley oversees the NFJP grant for Wisconsin and Missouri and the Community Service Block Grant in Wisconsin. And she's been with UMOS for 11 years. So we are very happy to have them. Sorry, I was a little bit off the screen there. Okay, and I want to also show you all how you can get in touch with UMOS. So there you go. So we have a few questions prepared for Rod and for Shirley. I want to give a shout out to Jennifer Shahan. She's joining us from Maryland. Wendy Ford is here. She works with the Association for Migrant Educators of Texas. And she's also been very instrumental in helping some farm worker children submit entries to our contest. So we love her. So anyways, not without further ado, I'll start with one question for Rod. So UMOS started out as a single state, single focus migrant serving agency. Now it operates in 6 states and administers over 40 different programs, or maybe that's a little out of date, maybe it's more now. So could you tell us about UMOS's mission today and your target population today?
Yes, thank you. First, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. You are correct in that UMOS was incorporated in 1965. And at that time, UMOS, yes, indeed, was a single state, single focused nonprofit advocacy organization that targeted its single program to the 15,000 migrant farm workers that traveled mainly from Texas to Wisconsin to work in the agricultural field. And as you mentioned, this is our 55th year of celebrating the programs and services that UMOS has provided. Today, UMOS is still a nonprofit advocacy organization, but we have expanded from 1 state to 6 states. We currently have operations in Arkansas, Florida, Minnesota, Missouri, Texas, as well as throughout the state of Wisconsin. Today, UMOS is a more diverse organization. We provide diverse programs and services to diverse populations and with a diverse staff. And as you mentioned, UMOS has 40 plus contracts. Now, those 40 plus contracts are divided into 3 major program divisions. The social services division has several components or several programs underneath that division. Domestic violence, sexual assault, anti-human trafficking, which serves about 2,000 clients per year. Our home energy assistance program, which is operated in 2 counties in Wisconsin. That program serves about 50,000 clients, households rather. Our food pantry program, which is located in Milwaukee. Last fiscal year, we distributed over 400,000 pounds of food to about 33,000 individuals and families. And because of the current COVID-19 situation, our food assistance request has increased by 177%. So we are doing our best to continue to meet that increased demand. Also, under the social services division is our health promotion department, which has our teen tobacco education and prevention program, as well as HIV testing and case management. Also on social services is farm labor housing, which we operate seasonal and year-round housing in Wisconsin and seasonal farm worker housing in Minnesota. And the last 2 components on the social services are our adult basic education program, as well as our after-school program. Our second division is the child development division with 2 major programs, Migrant Head Start and Migrant Daycare. Those programs operate throughout Wisconsin, Missouri, and in Arkansas. And our third and largest division is our workforce development division, and UMOS is the largest workforce development nonprofit contractor with the state of Wisconsin. And under workforce development comes our National Farm Worker Jobs Program, which is going to be the focus of our discussion today.
Shirley, could you talk a little bit about NFJP?
NFJP has changed right now because of COVID, but UMOS does continue to provide services and case manage and see our clients through this year and onto their next career goals and pathways. We are still open for business. We never closed. So we are excited. We're excited to continue to provide services and do what we do best with NFJP.
You do a great job. I've been lucky in that I've seen your offices, and it truly is a one-stop shop. And you are the definition of wraparound services for farm workers. So I was especially impressed by the childcare room. So decorative, and the teachers seemed really dedicated. I think while we were visiting, there weren't any kids in the room, but the teachers were like actively snipping away at some crafts to to glue to the walls. So
Right. That is unique to our job center in Milwaukee, in that, you know, any parent with the kids, especially young kids, if you come to our job center, you have some things that you need to accomplish. And we found that parents would be able to accomplish that much more efficiently and effectively if they didn't have to have their children with them. So we provide space for their children. It is an educational space. It has games. It has there. We have several small computers with educational programs. There are snacks throughout the day. So while the parents are taking care of their business, their children are also well taken care of.
that's wonderful. Y'all got a shout out from Aurora Ortega Grimm. I think you might know her, but we're happy to have her on as well. And Micaela Mijares Rascon from Plainview, Texas is on, so shout out to her. Did you have anything more to say about programs that are available for farm worker kids in particular? Or was that the Head Start and one other program that you had mentioned?
Yeah, well, for kids, a Migrant Head Start program is, as you know, farm worker families migrate, and
Right.
so some, and a lot of times their kids, don't sometimes can fall behind. So one of the purposes of the Head Start program is to continue to provide that education so that it's more or less a school readiness program, so that when the families return home, their children are prepared to succeed within the regular public school system. So it is a
That's
very
great.
regimented and regulated program, and the childcare programs are one of our flagship programs that we are very proud of.
That's wonderful. Shirley, you said that you have never closed, but are you still working from the office or are you working from home?
We have both. We have some of our staff working from home and some of our staff who reported to the office during this time. But as of the past maybe 3 weeks, everybody now is back at the office and out in the field.
Wow. How's that? I know I'm going away from my prepared questions a little bit, but how's that been going?
It's been chaotic. The need is definitely there, and the need is now. So we find ourselves going out and visiting camps and providing food vouchers, gas vouchers, lodging assistance. Especially with COVID, it's just a whole different monster for us right now, and the needs. So it's difficult. It's hard because everybody has the emergency and everybody has the needs now.
Are you all? Go ahead.
Yeah, but it by Shirley and her staff, going out and into the fields, it also gives us a sense of how COVID-19 is impacting, in that there has been a lot of media coverage on the meat packing industry. Well, within the food processing industry, where farm workers also are employed, some of the same issues that exist within the meat packing industry also exist within the food processing industry, in terms of the closeness of working, housing, not being able to practice social distancing. So we have been fortunate to get several grants. One in particular is from an organization called Justice for Migrant Women. We have received several funds through them in order to purchase PPE equipment, and Shirley and her team have been going out to distribute that equipment, which is needed more so than ever today. So by Shirley's outreach efforts, it gives us a sense as far as what's happening on the ground and what are the COVID-19 issues and how can UMOS be a part of the solution.
That's good to hear. We had someone on here from Justice for Migrant Women. Norma Flores Lopez was on, and yeah, we have a lot of respect for that organization. They're a powerhouse. Mm-hmm. I want to say welcome to Mireya Lopez, Tonette Jefferson, and Shumar Mukherjee Saeed. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but we were happy to have you on as well. Let me go on to the next question, which was to recognize, again, the long history, the 55 years that you're celebrating this fall. Could you talk a little bit about what it may have been like for a farm worker family 55 years ago and how that compares to today? Is it the same? Is it better? Is it different? Rod, that question's for you.
Okay, a lot of the issues are, unfortunately, are the same. In that when again Lupe Martinez, who is the president and CEO of UMOS, as he tells us some of his stories, in that Lupe is a former migrant worker from Corpus Christi, Texas. And he and his family migrated throughout the Midwest. He has I believe 9 brothers and sisters. So because of his upbringing, his passion for migrant farm workers has remained. And so he has relayed stories to us about the working conditions that he and his family had to endure, the housing arrangements that he and his family has had to endure. And again, unfortunately, some of those conditions in some areas still exist. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot has been improved. There have been a lot of gains made, but the work is not done. The way that most migrant serving agencies was created was back in 1964. So when President Lyndon Johnson established the Economic Opportunity Act, and he started the War on Poverty. And that's how most farm worker serving agencies got their first funding. Well, and then the war on poverty is no more, but there still is poverty. And unfortunately, the folks who put food on our tables every day find themselves in a position where they can't afford to buy their own food. So again, there have been lots of gains, but there's still a lot more to do to create an equitable situation for the farm workers in this country. And it's interesting that the food industry and the food industry workers are considered essential, but when it comes down to treating the farm workers as if they are essential workers, that's not happening. And so that's why the fight continues, and the fight must continue because it's simply the right thing to do.
That's right. A quote that comes to mind is, it's always the right time to do the right thing.
Yes.
Thanks for that reminder, Rod. And we too are disappointed that things aren't better than they could be. That's why we're in this, to make it better. I may have jumped ahead a little bit with NFJP and didn't give a proper explanation of that program. Just to mention really quickly that AFOP is the association of all the organizations across the country that administer the National Farmworker Jobs Program. And so UMOS administers that program in Missouri and Wisconsin. So Shirley, can you just say a little bit, like a quick summary of what NFJP does?
So NFJP is the National Farmworker Jobs Program. It is a WIOA Adult Title I program. We provide career and training services to eligible farm work across the nation. We provide emergency services also for emergency needs. And we provide education to farm workers who maybe do not want to stay in the fields, or maybe who do want to stay in agricultural. We encourage agricultural skills upgrades. We provide those trainings through colleges, through short-term trainings, in order to create a better sustainability for our farm workers and their families.
And that's so important. Go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's one of the I think the unique aspects of the program is that, a lot of times historically, migrant farm workers families have felt that they had no other options, in that from generation to generation, the only option that was available was farm work. Farm work, as we all know, is an essential part of is an essential component of this nation's food supply. But through the National Farmworker Jobs Program, we're able to give farm worker families options as to what path they want to take. And I think that that is one of the critical reasons for the program and why it should continue to exist.
Exactly. It's critical. I think the average farm worker income for a single person is $10,000 or $12,000 a year. So it's like, it's nothing, basically. You can't really survive on that. I want to give a hello to Dawn Schmidt and Lillian Bonilla. I think Lillian's from Met, Minnesota. So welcome. And we also have Louisiana represented, so all across the country. I am eager to talk a little bit about the civil rights history in Wisconsin in particular, and I think Texas as well. So Lupe Martinez and his predecessor at UMOS, Jesus Salas, are, you can look them up on Wikipedia. They're listed as key players in the civil rights movement in the 60s. So what work still needs to be done to ensure that farm workers aren't mistreated, but are treated equally by the law? And would you have any advice for protesters right now on how to create real and lasting change?
Well, let me, I guess, start with an historical perspective in that, and which is pertinent today. Back in the 60s, UMOS and Lupe Martinez and Jesus Salas and farm workers participated in various marches. UMOS participated in various civil rights marches, not only in the state of Wisconsin, but they also participated in marches to Washington, D.C. back in 1968, for example. So because civil rights, it was marches for really for the African American population, but civil rights for all. And in one case in the mid 60s, the farm workers were being mistreated, abused, in a sense, more or less had no rights. That's one of the reasons that UMOS was established in Wisconsin. But there was a march to Madison, Wisconsin, which is the capital of Wisconsin, and farm workers and other civil rights movement folks took over the state capitol, and they demanded to meet with the governor of Wisconsin, and which they did. And out of that takeover and out of that march and out of that movement came the Governor's Council on Migrant Labor, which is a legislative statutory council that still exists today, and that council oversees the rules, regulations, protections, and laws that pertain to the farm workers that come to Wisconsin. And again, back in the 60s, when Lupe and UMOS folks took over the capital, and as a result of that was establishment of this council. And now today, for many, many years, Lupe Martinez has been the chair of that council. So it's like it has come full circle. So focus marches and protests can result in positive result and positive outcomes that will benefit everyone.
That's great. Thank you, Rod. We are very proud of Lupe and are happy to have him as a part of the EFOP family as well. Hello from Teleman, North Carolina. Monica Rose says hi. And Angel Cedeno from UMOS. Did I say that right? I think you know. I think you know that. Great. So I have to check my questions. 1 second. Shirley, question for you. How is the farm worker community changing in the Midwest? What needs have you identified when you've gone out into the community, and how has this impacted the way that UMOS runs the NFJP program?
I think the biggest change among the farm worker community is the increase in H-2A workers. It's a workforce or a population that's difficult to serve. They are kept so isolated and with their visa status, and understanding what is employer responsibility or contractor responsibility and what is worker responsibility. It's sometimes difficult to figure out what exactly are their needs and how we can support them and provide assistance. I think the current administration has also played a big part in the change in farm workers. Not only for undocumented, but I think for migrants as a whole. I think the threat of being stopped anywhere, if you're undocumented or not, has maybe hindered the migrating of farm workers between states. Fear has also played a part. So I think the migrant population every year is getting smaller and smaller. Housing is definitely an issue, I think, everywhere nationally. It's difficult for farm workers to migrate to a state for a couple months and find housing. Nobody wants to write up a lease for 2 or 3 months, so that's really hard. And not to mention that some of the states that have that are tourist states or have tourist areas, as Wisconsin, with central part of Wisconsin and northern Wisconsin being high tourist areas, rent is extremely expensive in the summer. So housing is a big issue. As far as some of the needs we have identified, again, housing. According to our community needs assessment that we conducted in 2019 for our community service block grant, housing was the #1 issue in Wisconsin for our farm workers, finding housing, followed by food and then transportation. Because, a lot of the migrants are bused up here. So once they arrive here, they're either walking, if they're staying on camp, the camp is close enough to the employer to walk. But other than that, they're pretty much bound to the camp and to work or the field, unless they are bused, which then again, they're relying on the employer for transportation. So those are some of the changes in the Midwest. Rod, would you agree?
Yes, and I would it has also changed um, our posture somewhat. And that again, we have always been an advocacy organization, but because of COVID-19, we have found the need that we need to step up and do a lot more aggressive advocating for the farm workers that we serve. So therefore, we work on that issue from the national level as well as the state level. And at the national level, we work with other organizations like Farmworker Justice to help get our federal legislators to understand the issues of their essential workers and how certain protections need to be put in place. And so we also are working with our state legislatures, and that's where the Wisconsin Migrant Labor Council comes in, and Lupe Martinez is the president of a group called the Wisconsin Farm Workers Coalition, which has established a task force to specifically deal with COVID-19. We want to work with the state to make sure that the state housing inspectors are more aggressively inspecting and more frequently inspecting the housing that is provided by employers to make sure that they are following the rules. And in Wisconsin, the governor mandated order. It's called Order 25, and in there it specifies certain elements that are targeted for migrant farm workers, like housing, in that the employer provided housing has to be spaced. There must be barriers in between. When the farm workers are transported from point A to point B, there needs to be spacing. So if that means that the employer had to make more trips to transport his or her employees, then that needs to be done. So, but then again, we are not going after anyone. We want to make sure that everyone, the states, employers, the local health departments, are all working together to keep the farm workers, employees safe, because without healthy employees, the crops are not going to get harvested. There won't be any food on the shelves at the grocery store. So it behooves all of us to work together for the safety and well-being of not only the employers, but to maintain the employers' operations. So that's one of the changes that we have seen within ourselves this year, is to be somewhat more aggressive in our advocacy effort due to COVID-19 for the farm workers who we serve.
Thank you, Rod. And Shirley, I want to get into a little bit about COVID-19, and we've already touched on that somewhat, but what impact have you seen it having on the agricultural industry as a whole and on farm workers specifically in the communities where you've been working?
So we've seen some issues with COVID and our farm worker communities. I guess the biggest one is providing information in the native language of the farm worker, be it Spanish, be it Creole, Hmong. When they are being tested, especially if you're bringing in the National Guard, which is already a very impressive operation when you see it from afar, I can see it being scary for a farm worker, and not providing them with one-on-one information and next steps. We administered your test, and they're like, oh, now what? What am I going to get a call? Am I not going to get a call? Some places call if they are only positive. Some places call if they are positive or negative. So when they don't receive a call and they're almost left in limbo where they're not even sure, do they quarantine? Do they continue to work? So issues like that on educating our farm workers on COVID and quarantine, and PPE, not only wearing a mask, but a proper way to wear a mask. We've seen a lot of our workers wearing the mask where it doesn't cover the nose. So, we make sure that we provide with the PPE that we are providing instructions. And even our staff have viewed videos on how to properly wear face masks. It sounds simple, but it does make a big difference that you're wearing PPE correctly. Isolation with employers and breakouts. I'm sorry, Rod.
No, finish her.
Isolation when you do have breakouts in the farms is an issue right now, especially where there's camps. Some of the camps are just designating, one barrack or building for everyone who's positive. But they're rotating, and should they be isolated? Can they all be together? Is a struggle, and I understand for employers too. I mean, do you put them up at hotels? What do you do? So there's a lack of information, I think, for employers also. We've also seen that simple things like medicine to manage your symptoms. We've been to camps where there's an outbreak and they don't have simple things like cough medicine or thermometers or something for fever. So water, Gatorades or something for the dehydration, and masks. So, we're blessed with our NFJP team here at UMOS, where we are still continuing to outreach and go out to camps and providing, as Rod said, I have almost 20,000 masks sitting in my office right now to distribute. So we are continuously providing masks for individuals and providing those emergency needs that they need right now.
Shirley, is there any? Oh, go ahead, Rod.
Oh, and again, we continue to work with the state, in that here in Wisconsin we have monitor advocates, and again, we have a state monitor advocate, but we also have housing inspectors, and so we continue to encourage the housing inspectors to do what they are supposed to be doing, and that during normal times, a housing inspector may only visit a camp, once or twice a year. Once at the beginning, to certify the camp is in compliance with the Wisconsin regulations for farm worker housing, but because of COVID-19, we think that there need to be continual inspections, because again, the governor has mandated, and now the Department of Workforce Development has extended some portions of the governor's earlier mandates about housing and about the social distancing and so forth. So that needs to be monitored and maintained. We were getting reports from some of the workers who we serve that they didn't feel that they were getting the information that they needed, or that some of the rules weren't being followed. So, and if what they were saying was true, then that employer could be in violation of the migrant rules that are set forth in Wisconsin. So we, again, in our more aggressive advocacy efforts due to COVID-19 and for the health of the workers, we filed a formal, complaint with OSHA and with the Department of Workforce Development to go and for a third party to go and do an investigation to see if the allegations were true. And if they were not true, then that's fine. If they were true, then what can the employer do to rectify that for the safety of their employees? So again, we certainly do not want to go after anyone, but we are an advocate for those who we serve. And in this case, COVID-19 is a serious issue that is, some may think it's going to go away by itself. That's not the case. So in the meantime, we need to do whatever we can do for the health and safety of those who we serve.
There are secondary issues with wearing masks, and for most of us who aren't working in the fields, just put on our masks when we go to the grocery store, or whenever we're out in public, is not that hard. Even so, people are having a hard time doing just that. But I can imagine for a farm worker who's out in the heat, working long shifts, how hard this could be to wear a mask. And also, when they're exercising and breaking out in a sweat, that could impede their breathing. And then adjusting the mask, would that lead to further pesticide exposure? Can you talk a little bit about that? That just came in from, I think, from Vashti.
Well, one, again, I'll defer that one to Shirley. But we part of the governor's orders and DWD orders is for those farm workers in the fields, there must be social distancing practiced. So contrary to before COVID-19, where the workers are in each row, well, now that needs to be staggered. However that needs to be done, whether it's every other row staggered or whatever, but those type of things have been ordered to put in place, and so hopefully that's one more measure that will limit or prevent or slow down the spread, in addition to the wearing of face masks.
I agree. Social distancing is really important. Now, will farmers implement it or allow it? That's another question. But I know myself, like you said, I can't even breathe when I'm in the grocery store with the mask. It's just hard.
Exactly.
I can't imagine being, in the field when it's 120 degrees with a mask. But I think social distancing is going to be key, but it's also going to be educating the employers also, and partnerships. I think partnerships are a key in all of this. Clinics, churches, food pantries, with the state, with food stamps, and other farm worker serving organizations is going to be key in order to fight this and help farm workers. I know even here, La Clinica in Watoma has been an amazing partner for us and for the farm workers in Wisconsin, because they bring that health element, and the knowledge that they need to provide to farm workers and answer the questions that we can't. So I think partnerships is really important during this pandemic.
Very much so. I believe the recommendations released by OSHA, like federal OSHA, are not enforceable by law. They're just recommendations. Are the ones that Wisconsin put out more enforceable?
Those are mandates.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great.
And again, that is why in Wisconsin we have inspectors, and they are to inspect whatever those mandates are, and they do have the authority to issue citations. So yes, it's not just a suggestion, it's an order.
That's wonderful. I want to say hello to Sylvia Salazar Murphy and Rachel Ann Morris Salazar, who joined us since my last summary of our guests. So thank you for joining us. I may have skipped a question, but I wanted to touch on the dairy workers in particular. They don't fall under the federal definition of migrant seasonal farm workers because they're not seasonal and they don't migrate. But I know that you serve dairy workers. What are their particular concerns right now?
In Wisconsin, we have the Community Service Block Grant, so we are able to serve dairy workers with emergency assistance for food, gas, and lodging. The issue, there's a lot of issues with dairy workers. They've kind of been left alone to kind of fend for themselves. But unfortunately, yeah, for NFJP, because of the seasonality of dairy workers, it gets a little, you have to kind of, if they're only milking, if in the summer they are in the crop, some workers in the summer are harvesting to the feed for animals. So, I mean, if you take that into consideration, they could be eligible for NFJP. But we do serve dairy workers in Wisconsin that need, and I believe Head Start also, right, Rod?
Yes. But one of the differences is that from the state migrant farm worker enforcement standpoint, dairy workers do not fall under the same enforcement definitions as migrant and seasonal farm workers. So the mandate that was set forth by the governor and then extended by DWD is more so for the migrant and seasonal farm worker side, not necessarily on the dairy side. So the same enforcement efforts, the same meat of the enforcement efforts do not apply to the dairy workers as they do to the typical migrant and seasonal farm workers. So, and that in itself presents a challenge from our standpoint in order to be able to serve the needs that they have.
And I bring that up because not all states have as many dairy workers as Wisconsin. I think, isn't Wisconsin the biggest producer of dairy in the U.S.? Is that, or is it Pennsylvania?
I believe we are neck and neck with California. For a while, Wisconsin was labeled itself as the dairy state. And now whether it's I'm not sure if it's milk or cheese, but we are neck and neck or go back and forth with California, I believe. Yeah.
Wisconsin cheese is the best, I have to say.
And we are active with dairy farms here in Wisconsin. I mean, we have visited farms and spoken to workers. We have had a few trafficking cases and sex trafficking cases of dairy farm workers, and we involve the proper authorities and programs and to address that. So our staff does a really good job here. I think Wisconsin as a whole, with the state and all the partners and UMOS, I think farm workers have a lot of support here in Wisconsin.
That's great to hear. One of our guests, Darlene Rodriguez, says that she lives in Nebraska but has a brother that lives in Wild Rose, Wisconsin, and they appreciate La Clinica in Watoma. So that's great.
We do too.
Yeah.
Also, hello to Sanjuana Leos, who joined us just a few minutes ago. I think, we haven't asked about the masks. Is UMOS collecting face masks for farm workers? And if so, where can people drop them off?
So face masks, we have been very fortunate. UMOS has been very aggressive with pursuing grants, especially for PPE for our farm workers, not only in Wisconsin, but in Missouri. As Rod mentioned, the Justice for Farm Worker Women donated, I think, close to $40,000 that we were able to purchase PPE and provide financial emergency assistance to farm workers in Missouri. So as we speak, our staff in Missouri right now is out in the fields distributing masks and financial support to our farm workers in Missouri. We've also received a $40,000 grant from Anthem, where we were able to purchase 35,000 masks to distribute here in Wisconsin. We've also, and I believe we anybody will always take donation for masks. We will always put them to use. We haven't even outreached half of the states. We have a long way to go, and it sounds like COVID will be around for a while. So we will always take, donations. I believe at our corporate office, Rod.
Yes, and of course, you shouldn't wear the same mask forever. So that's why we continue, trying to find ways to either purchase additional masks, or hopefully someone steps up to donate them, so that we can continue to get them out, so that they can be exchanged when as needed.
That's great. We have a comment that says that your wraparound services seem to be doing a wonderful job. So
thank you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of how many farm workers have been suffered or been diagnosed with coronavirus in the areas where you operate?
If we go by what is reported in the media, again, the meatpacking industry has garnered the majority of the coronavirus reporting. And we are working with the media now to raise the level of awareness of the same issues that that take place within food processing. Not as many, I would say, at least 100 or so in several food processing plants throughout the state. There have been reports.
Real quick, can you describe what food processing? I'm sorry. Can you real quickly describe what food processing plant might mean to those who might not
Shirley,
know?
I'll okay. Shirley, you want you
is the canning process. So canneries in Wisconsin and Missouri who can fruits and vegetables, it's probably it's canning plants, but we call them they call them processing plants here. But plants that process fruits and vegetables.
Thank you.
Right, and in some cases there is an assembly line type of of an operation, so that as the raw fruits and vegetables are on the conveyor belt, people are on both sides of the conveyor belt, and they are taking off the spoiled fruit and so forth. But it's closely, they're working close together, and so that's the issue that needs to be worked out. And again, and just like in the meatpacking industry, that type of closeness leads to the spread of COVID-19.
Can you talk about the different cases that you have seen? I don't know, is UMOS doing testing yourself, or is that something that La Clinica is doing?
Yeah, La Clinica is the medical branch, I guess, in a sense, that is actually doing the testing. Now, it just so happens that in Milwaukee, the UMOS Center, where the UMOS headquarters is located, has a large parking lot. And we have made that parking lot available to the city and the city health department, where the National Guard have been there for the last, I'd say, month. And in our parking lot is probably either the largest or one of the largest testing sites in the state. I mean, on day one, it was anticipated that that there would be 500 people who would be tested. We there were over 1,000 people tested that day. And I think in the first week, 10,000 were tested. So, but again, we are offering testing at one of our facilities, but UMOS itself, we do not actually do any testing ourselves. That is mostly left up to La Clinica or the local health departments within those counties where the farm workers reside.
I think another important point, Kendra, is since the NFJP or the Farm Worker Services Department never stopped outreaching, we are always aware of what's going on at our farms, at our camps, at our canning facilities. I know other entities are still closed, so they rely on the media on what's going on. But UMOS and our field staff being out in the fields, we always know right away when something is going on, and we can mobilize, La Clinica, contact our state monitor advocate, who we have an amazing relationship with, the state, OSHA, anyone who we need to mobilize and help us right away to address the emergency or the need. I think it's really important. I want to thank my team, but because of this, we know even sometimes before the media breaks or health department knows what's going on, because we're the one who's breaking and making the calls and breaking the stories, saying there's this is going on at this camp, this is going on at this farm. So it's pretty cool.
That is excellent. You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, NFJP staff is both in Wisconsin and Missouri, even now with our staff out, in the warehouses, at peach orchards and where corn, in the middle of warehouses or underneath trees. It's our staff is very passionate for farm workers.
And that is evident to me and to everyone who interacts even the littlest bit with UMOS. You guys are doing an excellent job.
Well, thank you.
The one final question I had was about housing, and we've talked a little bit about that, but UMOS is part of a housing consortium that is in multiple states. So can you speak to the actions that have been taken to address COVID in those crowded migrant housing units?
Okay, for UMOS, we own and operate several both seasonal and year-round housing, and some are regular apartments, so therefore they are family units, and so it's just like any other apartment complex where each family has their own individual unit, and so we consult with each of our tenants to give them materials, educate them on COVID-19 and what they can do in their own environment to to practice safe habits. So that's and then we work with employers, and again, as I mentioned before, also with the state, so that employer provided housing is also done so in the safest manner possible. But we do not have barracks style housing. Okay. They all are individual units.
That's good to know. One of our listeners, Wendy, posted a website for information on COVID-19 and dairy, so you can check that out in the chat.
Thank you.
That is all that I had in terms of prepared questions. Is there anything further that you, Rod and Shirley, would like to add before we close this all up?
Well, I want to personally thank you for having us today to talk about the issues that involves our nation farm workers. They often are considered as the invisible population. We need to continue to raise the awareness of how essential they really are, and to treat them in a manner that is certainly deserving of how essential that they are. We need to treat them with fairness, respect, just like we would anyone else. But we need to raise the awareness of our nation's farm workers.
Absolutely.
What
Shirley?
he said.
I concur.
I couldn't say it, but thank you so much for having us, Kendra. I think it's
You're very
always
welcome.
good to see you.
We've really enjoyed having you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. We'll
Bye.
see you later. Until next time.
Okay.
Yep,
Bye.
Adios.